I'm looking forward to the charging stop because I really got to go.
Yeah.
We've been an all EV family for 2 years now. Would you go back to an ICE vehicle?
2 years. That's how long we've been living the all-electric life with my wife's Tesla Model Y and my Rivian R1T. In that 2 years, we've learned a lot about what it means to own EVs and what it means to be a 2 EV household. From charging at home to charging on road trips, we're going to discuss and break down the experience, what's been great, what's been frustrating, and whether or not we'd ever go back to gas. I'm going to bring Alison in on this discussion and we're going to break it down together. Let's get into it.
Okay, so it's been a couple years for both of us to have our EVs. I picked up my Rivian R1T in February of 23, and shortly after you got your Tesla Model Y. When did you pick up your Tesla Model Y?
It was June of 23.
So it's a little bit after that, a little bit after me. I'd already been driving EVs for a while, so I started off with a Chevy Volt plug-in hybrid.
Right.
Owned that for at least a year. I can't recall exactly how long I owned that car. Loved that car. I think that car was ahead of its time. But it really showed me that I didn't need to worry about electric range. Like, it showed me that range anxiety really wasn't a thing. That Volt had 40 miles of electric range driving purely on battery power. And my commute at the time was like less than 10 miles. Maybe it was like maybe around 10 miles each way. And I literally never put gas in that thing. I think it would be at least 6 months between fill-ups. So much so that I worried about that gas becoming stagnant in the tank.
Yeah, I remember you having to say, I need to go use up this gas.
Exactly, yeah. Which is weird when you have to force yourself to use gas. But anyway, that was my first kind of foray into EVs. And shortly after that, since I felt a little bit more comfortable, I got a Nissan Leaf. And we had that Leaf for a couple of years.
Several years.
Which, again, was a nice car. But the range on that was an issue. 90% of the time it wasn't. But there were the few edge cases where we would drive out to see family down in the southern part of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it just didn't quite have enough range to make that a pleasant trip. We'd have to recharge on the way home. And then moved from that Nissan Leaf to the current Rivian R1T. So that was my EV journey. Alison, talk about your EV journey, because your Model Y is your first EV.
Yeah, so I actually, while you had the Volt and the Leaf, I absolutely did not want an electric vehicle because of the whole range anxiety thing. I have a longer commute to work that the Leaf couldn't make on a regular basis. Like,
you'd have to be charging that thing from like 20% to 100% like every day.
Yeah, I didn't like driving it to work. So I really was just not going to get an electric vehicle at all.
Yeah, and just for reference, I think that Leaf had like 140 miles of range or something like that.
Something, I think it was like,
140, 160.
Oh, I thought it was less than that, but okay.
Yeah, it was somewhere around there.
Originally it had 80.
Yeah, exactly. So I was able to get a warranty battery replacement, which was nice. Like right after I bought it used. Right after I bought it, I was able to get that warranty replacement. Basically, had a brand new battery in there.
Yeah, and it did lengthen the.
Yeah, but not enough.
No. So, after you got the Rivian, you let me drive it to work, and that totally changed my perspective, because I was like, oh, I could make it to and from work without having to charge it.
Several days worth of commutes.
Yeah, I could do it 2 days.
Yeah.
Without having to charge it, and that made me feel so much better. And then it got to where I didn't want to have to go put gas in my car. I was getting really frustrated with having to go put my gas in my car, and you wouldn't go put gas in my car for me. And so I was getting more and more wanting my own EV.
Yeah, because you would see how easy it is for me. I just come home, I plug it in, and that's it.
Yeah, it was just not fair. I wanted that for myself. And Tesla had just lowered their prices.
Oh, before that, like you were originally looking at the Volvo EX90.
I was. I
was
did
that what it's called?
the EX90,
Yeah.
and I did put a hold deposit
reservation,
on it.
yeah.
And they're pretty cars, but I didn't like waiting. I became impatient.
Yeah. Because I think at that point you knew you wanted to get into an EV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I knew that I needed something that had a longer range. Like
Right.
it couldn't be a Leaf
Right.
or something that the range just wasn't there. So I needed something that had a longer range. And so I looked around for a little bit, but I settled. I decided on the Model Y.
And they were coming down in price too, so
They were, and I got the long range Model Y, and I had test drove a 3 actually.
that's right. I remember that. It was too low to the ground.
Yeah, I didn't like how low that was.
Because you were coming from like a mid-size SUV type thing. You had a
I had a Mazda CX-5.
CX-5? Okay, CX-5, yeah.
So I was coming from that. So that sits up much higher.
Right.
So even though the Y doesn't sit up as high as the Mazda, but it's still higher than the 3. The 3 was just too low. But I like the handling of it. That was nice. So I figured that if I liked the handling of the 3 but didn't like how low it was, that I would probably be happy with the Y.
Yeah. So tell me about your transition from having driven ICE vehicles your whole life and now this is your first EV. What was that transition like?
Well, I thought it would be harder to transition. Like, I thought that I wouldn't get used to the one pedal driving quickly, but that learning was very, very, very fast.
And I think we both agree, like one pedal driving, I think we now prefer it over the traditional way of driving an ICE vehicle, right? Where you're switching back and forth between brake and
Yes,
the brake
so
and the accelerator.
I have driven an ICE car since, just briefly, and it was so hard to get back into that because I was like jerking the car because it was the brakes and stuff, or forgetting to put my foot on the brakes.
Right.
But yeah, I prefer the one pedal driving. I really do. I've driven the R1T, and the regen is much stronger than
Which
the
I like.
Tesla.
I like the really strong regen.
But I do enjoy driving my car. I love it. I love driving my car.
So what would you say your favorite part of owning not only an EV but specifically a Tesla?
Oh, well, specifically the Tesla, I like my enhanced Autopilot.
Gotcha. Okay.
I use that every day. I did not want the full self-driving because I'm a control freak, so I didn't like when I've done the testing of that or the.
But they don't even offer enhanced Autopilot
They
anymore.
don't.
Right? Yeah.
So.
I mean, technically they do. You have to buy the full self-driving package, and I guess that's part of it. Is that what it is?
No.
No?
They don't really have it like that anymore.
Okay.
Don't believe. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong.
But you like enhanced Autopilot.
I do. I like that it asks to do things and doesn't just do things.
Right. And I will say that's one thing I've always been jealous of since she's had her Tesla is her Autopilot, because I've got a Gen 1 Rivian, and Driver Plus has been disappointing. Basically, my whole ownership of my R1T. In fact, check out my last video for more details about that. But it's a little bit better now because I've got a 3X in Openpilot, which brings me a little bit closer, actually I would say a lot closer to the Autopilot experience on Allie's Model Y.
I like how fast it is too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't drive fast. I probably drive like a grandma, but I like that if I need to pass somebody quickly, I can.
instant torque when you're
Yes,
driving
exactly.
an EV.
And I love that.
Absolutely.
I think that's also one of my favorite things. But from an EV standpoint, my very favorite thing is that I don't have to put gas in my car.
In fact, I think when we talk to people about potentially getting into an EV, like the first question we ask is, can you charge it at home?
Yeah.
Because if you can't, then the cost-benefit analysis of owning an EV is very different.
Yeah.
If you can charge it at work, that also kind of helps. But if you have nowhere to charge other than like a public fast charger, at this point I wouldn't recommend owning an EV.
Yeah,
Would you say the same thing?
Yeah, you need that personal infrastructure somehow that can allow you to leave your house every day with a full charge.
Right.
Because
leave your house or leave work at the end of the day with a full charge, one way or the other.
We are fortunate that we were able to put in an outlet or put a charging system in our house. So, and we were able to share it.
Yeah.
Because my car charges really fast. It takes just a couple hours. I charge every day, so
We both charge every day, in fact.
Yeah, but I get home.
Not that we need to. I don't think we have to charge every day. We just kind of do it out of convenience.
Yeah, habit, trying to keep the routine up.
Right.
I work really well with routine. So, plugging in when I get home. Because I plug in when I get home, and then you plug yours in.
I plug in. So
right
you're
you
finished charging. Yeah. So you're finished charging at about 8:30 p.m. So right before I head up to bed, I'll unplug your Tesla and plug in my Rivian. And like in the morning, we're both not, I wouldn't say fully charged, because we actually have our cars set to charge up to 80% on a daily basis. So
yeah, I don't ever charge up to 100 unless we're going on a road trip.
Right. So let's talk about that. Road trips, charging on road trips. And I guess this kind of goes into my next question, is if there are any negatives about driving an EV, what would you say the negatives are?
I would say the negatives are that you can't just pick up and start a road trip. You really do need to plan, because you need to know where you're going to stop at, where your charging stations are, what backup charging stations are. Because of that infrastructure, you can't just decide on a whim. Oh,
For sure.
I'm driving to California.
I mean, I will say it's getting easier. Like when I first started driving an EV, the infrastructure was nowhere near where it is today.
Right. It is getting better.
It's definitely getting better, and planning is getting better because we have apps now like a better route planner, things like that. I would say the planning part of it, I think at this point is mostly like you said, you want to see which chargers you're going to be stopping at on a road trip. And one of the reasons you want to do that is you want to see, like, is this going to be like a huge stall of like 20, 30 superchargers where you're going to get there and most likely there's going to be an open stall? Or is this like an Electrify America with like 4 stations and 2 of them don't work, right? So that's a very iffy charging stop. It's also easier now because the supercharger stations, or a lot of them, are open up to other brands like the Rivian. So I'm not locked into having to charge at an EA station or an EVgo. Like 90% of the time I'm supercharging, I'm probably going to stop at a Tesla station, to be honest.
So we've done 2 road trips.
We've done
3?
More than that.
Well, 3.
Yeah.
So we drove, we took your truck to Louisiana. And that was nice, but we ended up driving overnight mostly because
we stopped at a hotel close to the destination, right?
Yeah, halfway, I thought.
So halfway?
Because we didn't start our trip until after work.
But what was nice about that is there was a charging station at the hotel, which I made sure, that's planning ahead, making sure if you're going to stop at a hotel, maybe stop at one that has a level 2 charger. So that was nice. When we woke up in the morning, we were not quite fully charged, but almost fully charged.
And the stops that we made weren't even very long. We'd either stop just to use the restroom, or we were going to get snacks. It wasn't anything really long.
Yeah, and I would think that's, so for somebody who doesn't own an EV, I think it's hard for them to kind of get their head around the experience, right? I would say typically, from our experience, when we've gone in to charge at a supercharger station at a Buc-ee's, for example, we go in, we use the restroom, we get some snacks. The car's done charging, or close to done charging,
Yeah.
before we're even finished in the Buc-ee's. Yes, technically, it does take longer to do a road trip in an EV than an ICE vehicle, but from my experience, it doesn't feel like it takes longer.
It doesn't really impact your ability to enjoy your trip. Like, you're not making so many unnecessary stops.
Right.
Usually it coincides with, oh, well, I gotta pee.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, speaking of that, the bodily necessities, I guess we could say, there would be several times where I'm like, I'm looking forward to the charging stop because I really gotta go.
Yeah. And we go with the kids,
Yeah.
and getting them out of the car and stretching their legs, and it also helps them too, so they don't have to feel like they're just sitting in the car. So I think it's been nice with that too.
So yeah, that's kind of a negative, but also a positive. So like a glass half full, half empty
Yeah.
kind of thing. All right, so we've been an all EV family for 2 years now. Would you go back to an ICE vehicle?
No, I would not. I don't like going to the gas station.
And you like driving your EV, right?
I do. I enjoy driving it. It's fun to drive.
Okay, so yeah, so that's our 2 year. Well, actually, before we close this out, since we have had our cars now for 2 years, let's talk about the ownership and experience in terms of like maintenance, issues with the cars. Like, have you had any issues with your car? That are the fault of the car, I should
No,
say.
I don't have anything that are the fault of the car. No, my car has been great.
Yeah, you've had to replace your windshield, and you're going to have to replace it again because right after you replaced it, you got another crack.
Yes.
That's the I think that's.
Oh,
the only,
I got hit by a raccoon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, raccoon attacked your car on the way to work.
Yes.
But in terms of like the EV itself, like you haven't had any issues because it's an EV.
No, I don't know if the wear and tear on the tires is a thing, but
I mean, yeah, that is a thing for EVs. Like the tires wear out a little bit faster.
I did replace all of my tires recently, but I haven't noticed anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Like my tires lasted 30,000 miles, so
Yeah.
I don't
Wasn't
think
too
that's horrible.
No, not at all. And your brakes are still great because we hardly ever use our brakes due to regenerative braking. We don't have to change the oil.
Right.
I don't even think you've changed your windshield wiper fluid. I know I haven't.
No.
In the past 2 years. So yeah, maintenance has also been a breeze, extremely cheap.
And the fact that we charge at home, like the only time that I've ever really had to go to a supercharger or anything, well, we did it when we first got the car.
Right.
Just so we could try it out. But only on road trips. I haven't had to stop anywhere. I just charge at home, which is great.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Yeah, we do 99% of our charging at home.
Yep. Stress-free.
Yeah, and I think we did the calculation that gas would have to be $1.50 a gallon to compete with the cost of charging at home, which is never going to happen. Yeah. So how many miles do you have on your Tesla?
It's like 32,000.
32,000 on your Y, and I have got about 37,000 on my R1T. So that has been our 2 year ownership experience of the Rivian R1T and the Tesla Model Y, and our 2 year ownership experience of being an all EV family. So hopefully you guys found that interesting, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye. Say bye.
Bye.